The music has stopped. I guess that, and my clock, my stopwatch has started here, so I guess that means I have to do something. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Well, you're a better crowd than yesterday. That's always good. It's nice to see that so many of you have managed to get in here this morning after last night's Universal Studios thing. I was kind of wondering, would people manage to lurch out of their beds and get here, or they'd say, no, I'm going to curl up in my duvet and I'm going to watch it online. For those of you that didn't get in, welcome to. Anyway, my name is Tony Redmond. I've been around for quite a while. I think I see a lot of familiar faces in the room, so that's great. So you don't need to know all this kind of stuff. But, you know, I have a lot of fun learning about Teams. And I've been doing email for a long time as well. So I think the combination of learning about Teams over the last couple of years and my background in email gives me an opportunity to talk about this subject, which is how and when and if Teams will take over from email. So we'll start off. I don't work for marketing. I have never worked for marketing. No, but seriously, you know, all big companies, all technologies, they come at one point in time with a marketing strategy, and the marketing strategy is all about trying to convince people to drive usage of the product or whatever. And I think that that's fine. Let's just establish that there are going to be marketing messages out there, but they should not drive your information strategy. Okay? It's really important to pick the right tool for the job. And that means that you have to think about the tool, you have to think about its capabilities, its strengths and weaknesses, and what it can do in your organization to solve business problems. Because essentially, at the end of the day, technology is absolutely useless unless it solves a business problem. That's it, in a nutshell. So, in terms of context, what we're going to be discussing here is we're going to be talking about email. And for email, I'm going to be comparing, you know, Exchange, Outlook, OWA, that kind of context, because we're working inside Office 365. And in terms of Teams, we'll be talking about the latest version that's out there. This week got a big bump with the advent of private channels. I hope you've all had a chance to have a look at it now. It's caused a little bit of commentary, let's say, because of the choice to use a SharePoint site behind every private channel. I've been asked about this. My take on it is that it was probably the only way that they could do it, given today's technology, if they wanted to have truly secure communications for the subset of a team that is the membership of a private channel. So I'm not that worried about it. What I want to talk about, I'll do a little bit of a flyby by Teams. I imagine everybody here knows Teams, right? So you're going to be bored in the flyby, but I'll amuse myself anyway, you know. Give me something to talk about. And then talk about what Teams does well, how it's succeeding, and some of the bad habits I have seen in Teams. I'll talk about some email advantages and problems, because like any technology, there are those problems there. I'll talk about measuring traffic, and eventually we'll get to some conclusions. So we'll get through this quite quickly. So as a start, boy, I don't know how far back you go, but I do remember paper memos in the office, right? I remember the first ever word processing systems. I mean, I worked in Digital Equipment Corporation, and they had a system called Whips Plus, and they had the DeckMate and stuff like that. And the word processing systems were huge. And we had letter quality printers. At least we thought they were letter quality printers, and we were very happy with them. But then, you know, over the period of my career, I've seen things shift all the way along. I mean, I worked on a telex system connected to an office system for scheduling helicopters in the North Sea. So, you know, it goes back a long time. And we've always seen that the next big thing has come. And it's like waves. Yammer was a wave. Remember Yammer? Apparently it's the year of Yammer right now. You know, I thought the year of Yammer was kind of 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, but that's not important right now. Well, the point is that we do see these phases of collaboration tools coming out there, right? And you're always going to, coming back to the strategy thing, you're always going to get people trying to influence you to use the technology in one way or another. Teams fits into this modern trend that you see of chat-based communications, where I think one of the basic characteristics I see inside these type of communication modalities is that the texts, the messages are very short. They're quite informal. They're chatty in nature, and Teams fits very well in there. In terms of the landscape, clearly this product's on a roll. It's absolutely on a roll. It's very, very fast development. Coming back to that comment about private channels this week. But there's lots of things. Every week you look in the Office 365 Admin Center and you'll see an announcement about this or that or whatever in Teams. It's really, really interesting place to be. Of course, we've had the announcement that Teams is going to replace Skype for Business Online. And that is kind of interesting to me, because if you look at the numbers that Microsoft has published for Teams usage, they came out for the very first time and they said, you know, we got 19 million people using Teams today. And you think about it, that's pretty big. But in fact, in terms of Office 365 as a whole, it's only scratching the surface, because the number for Office 365 as a whole is 200 million. Right? And in fact, if you look at another figure, which I've got there, 500,000 organizations, and you take out the biggies, the 160 organizations that have more than 10,000 Teams clients, which is another factoid from Microsoft, you actually calculate that the average number of users in an organization spread across the whole of Office 365, spread across these 500,000 organizations, is around 26 or 27. What does that tell us? Well, I think what it's telling us is two things are happening. One is we haven't seen the full impact of the Skype for Business Online phase out yet, okay? And the second thing is I think a lot of organizations are still figuring out how to use Teams. They're kicking the tires, they're trying to figure out how it fits inside their organization. And that's just fine. What it also tells me is that I think we're going to see incredible growth in this space over the next couple of years as those organizations finish thinking about Teams and move to a full-scale deployment. That's kind of interesting. Some people have described Teams as the new Outlook. The screenshot, where did I get that screenshot? I got that screenshot from a book I wrote about Exchange 5.0 in 1997. Yes, I still have. I was going to say, yes, I am that sad and pathetic person that retains all those Word files. But the interesting, so in 1997, Outlook came out. And Outlook was kind of the catch-all Swiss Army knife of Office tools at the time, because it contained everything that you needed to work as an Office professional. You know, it had email, it had contacts, it had a calendar, it had a journal, it had stuff that has long disappeared, tasks and stuff like that. But anyway, it was all together. And it reflected how we did work at that point in time. And I think because Outlook was that one-stop shop, it contributed to its incredible success over the years, right? The best release of Outlook, of course, was Outlook 2003, because it introduced drizzle mode synchronization and got us away from the opportunity of listening to modems communicating over telephone calls. But it is this one-stop shop, and you can take Teams and you can say, is that what the one-stop shop is today? And I think there's some truth there. It's stretching the analogy a little, but there is some truth. And the reason why I think that there's some truth there is because Teams, when you look at it, it's very into audio messages. It's very into video messages. It's very into the chats, you know, and that's how a lot of people like to communicate today. So I think there is some worth there. And it's also interesting that the same guy who built Outlook is now the leader for the Teams development effort. So maybe he's got it right second time around. Or maybe he's going to bat 2 for 2. I don't know. But that's kind of interesting. Now, everybody should know this, but I'm going to cover it anyway. 2 big parts of Teams, messaging and meetings, or the whole voice stack and whatever. In terms of messaging, clearly you've got lots of conversations, and those conversations are going to be very public because they're going to be posted into Teams, into channel conversations, or they're going to be private, and they're going to be limited to the participants of a chat, be it a one-to-one chat or a group chat. These channels are logical divisions within Teams. I wouldn't advise that people go too crazy about channels. You can have up to 200 of them in a team. You can have up to 25 private channels of those 200. So, you know, that's a lot of divisions of conversations. My question to you that you have to answer is how capable are your users of segmenting their conversations, right? Could they make a choice from 200 different channels? I don't think so, because I think human beings have a difficulty when they're asked to make a choice, right? A lot of people have a difficulty. If you put a big choice, 25 or 30 things on a list, they'll have a difficulty saying, well, oh, gee, you know, that list number 17 looks good, but list 19 really looks better, and I don't know, right? So be careful about creating channels, and make sure that you have an appropriate number, and that's up to you to define, for the type of conversations. Right now, Teams maxes out at 5,000 members. It used to be 999, and since then, Teams has gradually increased the number of members that it can be in a single team. Will it go higher? I don't know. I don't work for Microsoft. Would I bet on it going higher? Yeah, I'd bet. I don't know what odds I'd take from you, because I don't like to take your money, but I'd have a little bet there, you know. So it will go higher, and we'll see just how high it goes. But, you know, there's some pretty big organizations out there using Teams, and you can bet, there's another bet, that they are lobbying Microsoft to increase this limit right now. In terms of channel conversations, clearly they're available to all members, including the folks who actually join the conversation after it has started. That's good. That's one of the big advantages that people talk about Teams, because they say, you know what, it's not like email. In email, if you're not part of the original distribution for a message, you don't get the message. You don't see the replies. You're not part of the conversation. With Teams, you join a team, you can see all the channels, you can see everything that's happened, you know what's there. And there's a goodness. A second advantage that people talk about is that there's no forking. Again, in email, if you start off a conversation with a large distribution list, send it off, it's possible that some of the recipients will change the distribution list. They'll add people, they'll take people off, or whatever. And you start getting forked messages, and we see that all the time. I've got a maybe here, because there's a recent feature that's just been added called multi-channel post. It allows you to post a message to up to 50 channels at a time. And I think this is a really nice feature for something like posting an announcement where you wanted to get as broad coverage within the organization as possible. But here's the downside. Each of the channels, each of the messages posted to all those channels is treated by Teams as an individual message that survives in its own right. It's out there. It's going to start off a conversation in all those channels. And there's no way to bring all of the replies to all of the messages in all of those channels back together in one place. Is that a form of forking? I don't know. It sounds a bit like it. But again, it's an example of a feature. If it's used intelligently, then it could be great. If it's not used intelligently, wow, we might have the equivalent of an email reply all storm. Okay? So this, I think what I get from this is that as new features come out, you need to pay attention to user education, because there is the ability for people, or the ability exists for people to not abuse, misuse. Because people don't abuse things just willy-nilly. They misuse it because they don't know the right way to use it, and that's your role. Conversations can start with inbound email. You can set up a connector. So email can flow into Teams. Right now, email can't flow out of Teams. We'll see how the new features that Microsoft are promising with integrating Outlook into Teams work out, but for right now, things don't go out of Teams. In terms of channel and private conversations, I just put this up. It's a real, you can read this at home. The deck is going to be available, whatever. I just wanted to compare and contrast them, you know. And there are very big differences that people need to understand. One of the things I heard yesterday, which I was really happy about, is that Teams is going to support the OneDrive sharing control much better than it's done in the past. And the reason why that's, I think, is important is that if you share a document right now inside a group chat, you share it with the people that are part of the group at that point in time. But if people join afterwards, you have to go back and update the permissions. I believe you won't have to do that in the future, and I think that's pretty good. Anyway, that brings me to SharePoint Online. Teams puts a human face onto SharePoint. It makes SharePoint much easier for people to use. A Files tab is automatically created for every channel, and it points to a folder in the SharePoint site that's connected to the team. It all works very, very, very nicely. Makes it very, very easy for people to share stuff, because anything that's happening inside Teams is going into SharePoint, including messages that flow into Teams through that email connector, because they're automatically captured in SharePoint as well. In terms of Teams voice and video, clearly Teams has become the focus area for voice and video inside Office 365. And I have really nothing but praise for this, because it's, some people have complained, they say it's not as good as Skype for Business Online. And I'm saying, you know what, it's on a transition path. Some of the features are not yet there, but they're there, they're coming. Don't worry about it. And on the other hand, there are other features that are really delightful. And I talked yesterday about a feature that's coming that was announced this week, which is custom backgrounds. This is a feature that allows you to upload a photo of your own choosing, and you say that during the meeting, I'm going to have this background shown to everybody else in the meeting. Sounds good. But this is another example of where user education is going to be required. Because if you have everybody sharing their latest vacation photographs as backgrounds in a meeting, everybody's going to be pointed to the vacation location saying, well, gee, I wish I was in Hawaii right now. Yeah? And then again, you can always have people who do things like post stuff that's inappropriate as a background, a political message, for example. So there's some education that's going to be needed there as we make this transition into using all of these features. In terms of extensibility, Teams is a blank canvas for developers, and Microsoft clearly has put a huge amount of effort into this to make sure that developers can build the right kind of tools to extend Teams and make it that one-stop shop. So we have bots, apps, tabs, connectors, whatever. It's really, really, really good. And another thing, of course, is that we now have adaptive messages. At least we've had them for a number of years, but they're really coming on stream now, so that the messages, the cards that you see posted in Teams channel can truly do something. You can actually act on them and get stuff done. So overall, that was a quick fly past. Teams does a lot of things really well. Okay? Really, really well. And it's had the success. In terms of, if I was asked to have an elevator pitch to a CEO or something like that, you know, where you've got that magic 15 or 20 seconds of attention before they look frantically to see what floor they're getting out at and to escape from the mad person that's talking to them about technology. You know, I'd say, you know, Teams does a really good job of communication internally. It's fantastic internally. It's fantastic when you're communicating with guest users as well. But you have to add those guest users. Teams isn't so good about external communications to the world in the same way that we know of in email. So that is one thing to always remember. Teams is really good about collaboration around documents and about the other apps that you add to it. It's very good about getting work done when you're going to debate something, when you're going to have those conversations inside an organization to figure out what an idea really means. And it's really good about the way it integrates things together. So there's lots of things to like about Teams. And because I'm an old email person, I decided to give a really good example where Teams scores very, very highly over email. And this is it. So we started off, we're in a channel, there's 53 members, and we're going to have a conversation about a meeting. Okay? And this is a real live, this actually happened. Okay? So there were 123 responses to the original topic. 123 different topics. And as it says here, I think there were 37 people who actually responded out of all the members. So in email, well, in Teams you get this nice threaded conversation and all the rest of it. But in email, we really end up with a lot of duplication. We end up with lots of messages. And we end up with lots of out-of-office notifications. And we end up with what I consider is a real scar on email, which is auto-signatures. Auto-signatures sent internally. I know you work for the same company. I don't need to be told. And I don't need to see our company logo again. You know what? Think of Exchange Online. It's phenomenal. 200,000 mailbox servers. There's something like 5,000 database availability groups, and gosh knows how many databases. My question is, how much of those databases are filled up with author signatures? Think about that. But anyway, I calculated that if I was to do the same thing in email, I would get at least 6,500 messages. With Teams, it's that one thread. And this, I think, captures in a very practical sense where Teams is really good. You're having a conversation, there's going to be lots of responses, those conversations captured in this one neat thread. So that's good. But Teams has some not so good aspects. I was talking to a CIO a little while ago, and I asked how their implementation of Teams was going, and the quote right at the top is exactly what I was told. Multiple badly organized places to have conversations. And my response to that person was, I don't think you planned your implementation too well then, did you? I certainly don't think that you gave users good education or support, or you figured out what you wanted to do with the tool. And that leads to this type of thing. It is far too easy to create a chaotic sprawl of teams and channels. And I know, I get it. Listen, I've been in the same sessions that you have at this conference, where I have listened to the evangelists saying, we want to liberate users, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Much as I love users, at least some of them, they're not technologists, they don't know how to collaborate, and sometimes they don't do a great job. I listened in one particular one to how Microsoft does it, and listening to how Microsoft does it, the thing you always have to remember is that Microsoft is a very special place, with very special people, with a very special aspect to technology. Now you take those three things and ask those questions inside your organization. Do you have the same type of technology-savvy users? Do you have the same attitude towards technology? Or do you have regular human beings who just want to get stuff done? Okay? If you're in the category where you've got regular human beings who just want to get stuff done, then they need guidance and help. Otherwise, you do end up with this chaotic sprawl. I think sometimes Teams doesn't help itself with poor default policy settings. Turning everything on when new features are launched is possibly not a good idea. You know, because the help desk, for example, needs a little bit of time just to spin up on things. Maybe the folks who are educating your users need a little bit of time. And the last thing, again, it comes back to user education. There's a lack of Teams etiquette out there in many implementations. What I mean by that, etiquette is just a way of guiding people to making use of technology and communication. I mean, a really simple thing, I keep on saying this at conferences, always start a new topic with the subject. If you do that, you will make it so much easier for people to find information. Second one, always give a group chat a topic for the same reason. Two simple things. Okay? And I'm flabbergasted when I participate in teams with lots and lots of very skilled technologists, and they can't get this simple thing through their heads. So take that away and make sure that your users do that. Very, very simple things. Another thing to be wary of is this time soak. People criticize email, and rightly so. And they say that email can be terribly distracting. The ping as new messages arrive in your inbox, yeah, humans get distracted. And they break off of what they're doing and they go and do it. Now, if you think that Teams is going to break that type of cycle of distraction, you are absolutely wrong, because it can be as distracting as email, and even more so if you have that chaos of channels. So, again, another quote, badly done, chat can suck your attention dry. Especially a fast-moving chat where there's new replies appear, boom, 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 faster than you can keep up. That activity feed is going to be very, 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 very busy. I will say this, another new feature that's very recent, pinned channels. This helps enormously because you can pin your most important channels to the top of the Teams list, and that gives you a focus on what you go and look at. And ignore all the rest until you actually have some time. So some issues that I throw out when I talk to people about Teams. When you're making the transition, when you're trying to think about, I really do want to embrace this technology, and I do think that I want to move away from email for one reason or another. Everybody has different reasons. Let's start talking, these are things that you need to coach people about, are considering your own environment. First thing is, you're asking people to move from a personal mailbox. They have total control of their mailbox. You're asking them to move into a shared space. And the shared space, in this case, is when I'm going to have some conversations with other people that I might start off in email, but now I'm going to use personal chats. But you know what? One of the things about personal chats is they're not really personal. Well, they are because you're talking to people, but they're not really personal. You don't own them, because anybody in a chat is a co-owner of the chat. It's kind of funky, where let's say you're having a chat with 20 people, and somebody in the chat decides to kick you out, even though you started it. It's kind of funky like that, So you have to coach them of that. And of course, they're going to see a huge concentration on sharing through OneDrive and sharing through SharePoint. And that's a little thing that people have got to get used to. Mind you, I think this is a very, very good habit to give people, even if you're going to stay on email. Let's get to cloudy attachments, folk. Please. It gets so much better. And again, you're going to see some changes coming in OWA and Outlook for how those products use sharing links, OneDrive sharing links. It will make it much, much easier for people to control where that information goes. So the second thing, inside email, I have a single inbox. Now, some people use their inbox as a dumping ground for everything. Now, that's just fine. It's whatever turns you on. Some people, those people are pilers. They like to pile email as high as they can, and they rely on search to get through it. And then there's old-timers like me who are filers. We put stuff away, right? But whatever you do, you still got your inbox, you're in control and whatever. In Teams, is the activity feed the equivalent of the inbox? I don't think so. I really don't think so, because it's too chaotic. I think you're going to have to coach people. Again, those pinned channels, really, really good to help you organize stuff. You have to coach them on how to use this single inbox approach versus spreading their attention across multiple teams, multiple channels. So they're happy. They understand how they can get to information. They understand how they can process information. Delete and forget. What does that mean? Well, an email. Somebody sends me email. I look at it, read the first couple of lines, whatever in the preview, hit delete. I get through email real fast. I work on the basis sometimes that if somebody sends me email and I delete it unread, if it's really, really important, they'll come back to me. Okay? Teams is all about shared memories. Okay? And again, you don't have as much control. You are in a shared space. So people may not even be allowed to delete their own messages. It depends on the policy that you assign to Teams. They may not be even able to edit their own messages. This is the thing, by the way, that comes up all the time inside the Teams team that Microsoft makes available to MVPs, where we can go and discuss things with the Teams product group. We're all guest users, which is fantastic. We're not allowed to edit our messages. It really ticks people off because you make spelling mistakes and stuff like that, and you want to go back and you want to add something. You can't do it. So again, this is where you have to think through your implementation. What are you going to allow people to do? What policies are you going to impose, et cetera, et cetera. Outbound email. What am I going to do to keep on communicating with people outside the company who aren't guest members? Now, if those folks are inside an Office 365 environment, you're likely to be able to grab them with federated chat, and that's fine, and it's getting a lot better. But there's a lot of people who don't use Office 365, and those folks need to be connected with through email. Search, I think, is an issue. Microsoft promises that it won't be an issue soon, but right now, the search inside Teams, insert here, looking for charitable description. It's not good. It can do a lot better. And the last thing is an interesting cultural issue for you to think about. Teams doesn't have a directory. If you're coming from email, you're used to the GAL. The GAL is where you find stuff. Distribution lists, shared mailboxes, personal mailboxes, folks you can communicate with. It's great. Teams doesn't have that. And the number of organizations that have built their own Teams directory is phenomenal. I wrote a script to do this and published it on petri.com. And it was one of the articles that I got the most feedback from in the last couple of years. Because people said, this is great, we need this. Why isn't it in Teams? I don't know why it's not in Teams. But the point is you don't have a directory. So people who want to know where they can go to collaborate sometimes need a little bit of help. So that's a thing you've got to figure out inside your organization. Now let's talk a little bit about email, because email, has some strengths, it has some weaknesses. It's been around a long time. So it's had the opportunity to develop some of those strengths and some of those weaknesses. A little factoid thrown out yesterday at one of the Exchange talks. Exchange Online deals with 200 billion messages a month. It's a lot of email. It's a lot of email. They didn't say how much of it was spam, but we'll come to that. So there are some advantages. Everybody's got email. Okay? Everybody's got email. It's everywhere. All right? And the range of clients, the range of open protocols means that it's very easy to connect. Now, there's some downsides to this. One of the downsides, of course, is that once you've got an email address, you become liable to be attacked. I mean, password spray attacks against people's email addresses are the single biggest attack on Office 365. That's one of the reasons why the Exchange guys are trying to get rid of basic auth as quickly as possible. And that's a thing that you should put in the back of your mind. If you are running email systems, basic auth is going away, and it's a good thing, right? But people really like it because they can, they can connect to email with whatever client they want. They can reach out and communicate with people all around the world. There's no great problems. Everything is happy until they hit this. It's horrible, isn't it? And we haven't managed to really, really tame spam and malware because it's an ongoing battle between the good guys and the bad guys. And there's lots of bad guys out there. Multiple barriers do make a difference. If you're inside Office 365, Exchange Online Protection, it's pretty good. Exchange Online Protection with Advanced Threat Protection is even better, or a third-party message hygiene product. I've already talked about auto-signature junk and bloat, and of course we know about auto-reply all storms, which happen a lot less today, and again, Microsoft is working on a way to suppress them even more. And then there's notifications. Notifications for just about everything. And again, one of the things I learned yesterday in listening to the OneDrive folks talking about their new sharing capabilities that they're building in across Office 365 is those guys generate email notifications for everything. So even if you do go all in Teams, you got the OneDrive guys will be sending you all the notifications in email, and you better be reading those to know when you have got a shared document to go look after. I would say overall that that email remains best for a number of things. And I threw up a couple here, like formal communications, inside and outside the company. I think that's definitely. Secure communications, especially inside Office 365. I don't know if you've been following this, but sensitivity labels are now generally available across all the Outlook clients. You can apply encryption really, really, really easily. And it's encryption that's based on rights management. So if somebody gets your email that shouldn't be able to read the email, they won't be able to get access to content. I think that's really, really important. I think long and complex conversations. If I'm having a conversation with a lawyer, I'm probably not going to have it in Teams. All right? Same type of thing. Any profession where you've got a really, really, really complex thing. Because mostly those people are going to be outside of your company. And mostly the conversation is going to be really complex. It's going to have multiple attachments. It's going to have long, complicated messages. That's not where Teams is good at. Teams is all about that close communication, the chatty communication where you're trying to work things through. So working offline. Teams isn't pretty good at working offline right now. It's got a lot better at dealing with network outages, but it still doesn't have the same type of offline capability that you get in Outlook, right? So if you want to do a lot of work on the plane or on the road, when you don't have a network connection, that's where you're going to be using email. The last one I got there is printing. People still print. Teams doesn't print. No more needs to be said on that topic. Hey, Xerox are just about to pay a lot of money for HP. They see value in ink. Anyway, if you do decide to make the move, I think it's really, really, really important that you measure what you're doing. Okay? And there's a number of ways of doing it. Office 365 has got some reports. They've got the Power BI adoption pack. All of these are good at giving you background history and how things have changed. There's lots of third-party products out there like Quadratec Nova, which will give you even more data about what's happening inside Teams. The important thing, though, is to measure before and keep on measuring as things go on. And what you're looking at, I think, is you're looking at tracking how people are sending mail internally. If you track the volume of total mail, yeah, that's interesting. But that also has all of the mail going outside of the company to people that aren't ever going to use Teams. What I'm really interested about is, can I drive internal mail down? And I want to see two things. I want to see the volume of internal mail going down, and I want to see the volume of Teams conversations going up. And I'd also like to see the volume of Teams meetings going up, because that means to me that people aren't just switching over to Teams for messaging, but they're also switching over to embrace the entire capabilities of the client, which I think is phenomenally important. Okay? And it says at the bottom, also have a look at how people are changing their sharing behavior. You want to see an increased volume of stuff happening in SharePoint and an increased amount of stuff happening in OneDrive. Because we really do, I mean, if you're going all in here in the cloud, why are you storing documents on local drives? In terms of some management challenges, I think you probably have to factor in your plan. I think firstly, have a look at those Teams policies. But remember, it's not just Teams. It's not just Teams. You're going to have things like Azure Active Directory to deal with as well, especially if you're going to have guest users coming into your tenant. So you're going to make sure that you've got the Azure Active Directory collaboration policy set up to whitelist or blacklist domains, depending on how you feel about it. I think the second challenge is keeping up with change. Just look at a couple of things that we've mentioned in this presentation that have happened recently. Things like pinned channels, private channels, custom backgrounds for meetings. And there's a ton of them. So how do you keep up with it, with that change? And how do you relate that change, translate that change for your end users? Because that's one of your big tasks, isn't it? You know your business. You know the office politics within your business. You know how things run within your business. And it's your role, I think, often to just take the technology that's put out by people like Microsoft and translate it in a form that makes sense to your users. I think you also have to think about how you're going to deal with Teams expiration. The expiration policy for Office 365 groups has just been upgraded. It now expires groups automatically based on activity. One small problem is that the activity doesn't take into account a team that's set up to host things like connectors. So you could have a connector pouring in information from a third-party network source into Teams. And as far as the expiration policy is concerned, it's going to look at that team and say it's not very active. And the final one there, guest access. Guest access is a really important part of making Teams productive. But you have to manage guests. You can't just allow guests to come into your tenant, have an account in the tenant, and remain in the tenant from here to the end of eternity. So what's your policy there? I don't think Teams is going to replace email anytime soon. I really don't. But that's not the point. I really don't think that's the point. I think the point is to look at the technology and see how it can be used in conjunction with email to solve different business problems. And the companies that embrace change, embrace the new technology, work out how to use Teams effectively alongside email are the ones that are having the happiest experience right now. So that's what I think you should be looking for. And start using Teams. If you're not using it today, start using it. Play around and see how it can be used inside your organization. But please, 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 take the time to plan. Take the time to create a policy-based administration structure so that you make sure that users get the right functionality at the right time, and make sure that you train them. This is a complex piece of software, and it's not something that, they're not born to use Teams. They have to be trained to use Teams. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for coming this morning. I hope you have a great, well, we've only got 3 hours left. Enjoy the last 3 hours of Ignite, and please remember to evaluate the session. Thank you very much.